Well, welcome everyone to Shiloh Ranch Church. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. We're so glad to see you guys here. Let us know where you're watching from. I know we have viewers from a lot of different states, maybe a handful of different countries. Super cool. So let us know where you're watching from. Where are we watching from?
Well, right now we're in beautiful Powell, Butte, Oregon.
Beautiful.
Beautiful day.
I think it's fall officially now.
Yep.
But we do have a couple 80-degree days coming up, so I'm confused.
Yeah.
All right. Just a reminder to you guys, utilize our prayer room. We have people standing by here in Powell Butte ready to pray with you. They are the most incredible people. So if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you jump over to our online platform and head into the request a prayer tab, and then you'll be put into a prayer room with a prayer team member. And you guys, this can be completely anonymous. If you create an anonymous account, you can request prayer for yourself. You don't even have to give details. You could just say, I just need prayer, and our prayer team is able to do that. Or if you know someone that needs prayer, again, no details needed, completely confidential. No one else can see the chat room. So just know, you guys, that is such a huge thing for us to have. I mean, we have a prayer room here in Powell Butte, but for our online campus, we would love for you guys to feel comfortable utilizing that. So jump into a prayer room. And
we've been here on Sunday mornings, and the prayer team is here waiting to get prayer requests. They want to do it, and they're there. Truly. And they're honored to do it. So take advantage of it. Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, we're about to jump into worship. We love you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard tender It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Yeah, I really think it's easy to take the word perfect for granted. Like we talk about, oh, this weather is perfect. This burrito that I'm eating is so perfect. When we're talking about God and saying you are perfect in all of your ways, we're talking about God's love and his peace and his patience and his loyalty to us and his forgiveness. And we think of someone that maybe we look up to and we think, I want to be them, they're perfect. And we know that humans aren't perfect. And it's just crazy to imagine that God's love and forgiveness and peace, the things that we crave, is perfect. So I just want to sing that again. You are perfect in all of your ways. And think about the word perfect and how we just throw it around casually. But we're talking about our Father, who loves us and forgives us. Let's sing that. You are perfect. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, you are. You are perfect in all of your ways. Well, you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
All right, you guys, we are about to head into the sermon. Wesley, what are we going to be learning about today?
Well, this is part 5 of the Plato's Cave series, and this one is titled Impractical Patience.
Practical patience. I need some patience. I'm not a very impatient person. You guys, while you are watching the sermon or anytime throughout the service, you can head to the notes section on our online platform. If you're watching from Facebook, make sure you head over to our online platform to access that. But the cool thing about the notes section is you can write down any notes and then you can download them at the end of the service so they don't go away. So make sure you download them, keep those notes. You can also be writing down comments, questions, things to be asking during our Monday night podcast / live stream. So yeah, utilize the note sections because that's, an easy way to just be typing while everything's on the screen. I haven't written down anything in a long time. So
I don't
I just type everything.
I don't even own a pen.
I don't even own a pen. Okay, you guys, into part 5 of Plato's Cave. This is Impractical Patience.
Welcome to what I'm afraid might be the most complicated sermon I had to preach this year. Not complicated because it's hard to understand, but complicated because it feels like it's so fragmented. As I'm mentally preparing to try to go through this, it almost feels like the veins on the back of a leaf where it feels like it could go 1,000 different directions. And so try to stick with us. I'm going to read through this story, and then I will do my very best to sort of stay in the trunk and not get too far off in the branches. John chapter 11. Jesus is with his disciples, and he gets a messenger. They come to Jesus, and it says, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one that you love is sick. It's those desperate moments of like, Jesus, we really don't ask much of you. You ever had this moment with Jesus where like, Jesus, the one you love is sick. You love him, remember? Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. You would think, at a glance, you would think Jesus is compelled by this. He goes, no kidding, Lazarus is sick. And it says that he loves Lazarus. He loves the sisters. So, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he took off in a panic. Now, it says that draws the distinction. It says he loved them, and because he loved them, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. That seems like that should be the opposite of that. I'm skipping ahead to verse 11. After he had said this, he went to tell the disciples. He says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. Verse 14, we're skipping through this. If you want to go, it's John chapter 11. You can read through it. This is verse 14. He told his disciples plainly, Lazarus is dead. As heavy as that lands. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there. I feel like I probably have your attention. He loves Lazarus. He loves Mary and Martha. He's explaining to his disciples that Lazarus, who he loves, has died. And he says, and for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. We're in a series right now that's asking the question, what is the most real? What version of reality is the most real? Is it the version of, life on the Serengeti where it's kill or be killed, competitive resources, riding the surface of the Pareto distribution where you want to be one of the highest producers and highest earners? Is life about conquering, or is reality more about growing in wisdom and gaining wisdom, even if it means that you sacrifice some of the conquering? This is the whole juxtaposition of the Plato's cave that we've been looking at. What is more important? What is most real? What is most important? Is it the love of wisdom, or is it the love of conquering? And with that, what sort of culture should develop in the lives of people who follow Jesus? This is a sermon that should be very easily understood, whether you're in church or whether you're not. We're doing 2 things. We're saying that wisdom outweighs conquering, and we're saying that there is a culture that should develop around the lives of people who follow Jesus. And you read stories like this, and you go, man, Jesus does not seem like an easy person to follow. If you're following Jesus and he says, I love Mary and Martha and Lazarus, and I'm glad I wasn't there. He's dead, and I'm glad I wasn't there. You can understand that there would have been times, just like today, in following Jesus, where you go, Jesus, I assumed that you were going to do this. You were going to win. And you go this way. I thought you were going to go this way, and you go that way. We're looking at this week the culture of those who follow Jesus, the fruits of the Spirit. We've been over love, joy, peace, and then my personal least favorite, patience. We're on patience this week. That the life of somebody following Jesus should be somebody whose life produces patience. And I hear that, and I'm like, I don't want to preach about that. I don't have time. I don't have time to preach about patience. I got 3 points. I'm going to try to take patience apart and look at it the best we can in 3 points. I want to look at it in 3 different columns, and that is where patience isn't, where patience isn't, where patience is, where to find it, and when we find it, what does it look like? I think the reason that it's important to know where it isn't is because we've been taught, I think even in church we teach this, that patience is the willingness to wait until the good thing that we have in our mind happens. Patience, we teach kids patience with this. We go, we're going to give you 1 marshmallow now, but if you don't eat it, if you'll be patient, if you'll wait, then when I come back, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. But if you eat your marshmallow now, then you don't get the one later, right? So we get this thought in our heads that it's like a nursery rhyme, that we have this original good thing that we're waiting for, and, we can pace, we can pant, we can just be mad, we can be a ball of rage and a fit as long as we don't jump the gun and we wait until the original good thing happens. But the problem is, that would be to say that patience is only located in the end when we get what we wanted, when that original good thing that we had in our minds. Because when you think about Mary and Martha, when they came to Jesus, they said, we have something in mind, and we're asking for you to come heal Lazarus. That's what we want. And Jesus says, be patient. And they're like, what? So just wait until you eventually do the thing. Just wait until eventually you do what we ask. Can you imagine the challenge of someone. Imagine your own life when you've got something as urgent as a loved one being sick, which I think we should all be able to relate to. And we ask Jesus for something, and Jesus says, be patient. We go, how? How am I supposed to be patient? Am I allowed, if you think about it, am I allowed to be a Jesus follower that's just running around mad and angry, but I'm not jumping the gun. I'm not doubting Jesus. I know he's going to do it. And patience is reserved for the very end where I get what I wanted. Somewhere in there, it doesn't seem like that's the idea. It doesn't seem like the fruit of the Spirit is anxious chaos until we get what we wanted. Patience isn't located only in the end. Patience is not delayed gratification. Patience is not putting off something good till later. Hopefully we're confused enough by now that the rest of the sermon is worth listening to. I think sometimes we're told that patience is what we need to exhibit when we start to feel anxious. Let me tell you this. If you wait until the anxiety starts, you're too late. Patience is already not at work when you're feeling anxious and uptight and waiting for God to get you to that end zone that you needed. I got a bill that's due. God goes, be patient. And you're like, okay, so what do I do in the meantime? Till that bill gets paid. I'm looking for a spouse. As much as we hate to admit it, I'm looking for another spouse. Waiting for the next thing. I'm waiting for the healing. I'm waiting for the next election. We're always waiting for something, and we're not living today because we feel like patience is located in the end. Lazarus is dead. This is Jesus in verse 14. Lazarus is dead, and for your sake, I'm glad I was not there. Jesus doesn't say, if only I would have hurried. Okay, come with me. Okay, let's get to the end now. I wasted a few of your days because I'm Jesus, and I just wasted some time without a purpose. Let's get to the end, and let's figure out what this is all about. He says, I'm glad that I wasn't there. And it's a good job. Way to hold out. You did it. He said there was a benefit in the waiting. Ready? Because we're about to find out where it is. It is not heavily loaded in the end where we go, you act however you want as long as you don't give up on Jesus. He's saying there is a benefit to be had today. He hasn't healed Lazarus yet. He hasn't gone and taken Lazarus and raised him from the dead yet. He's saying, I'm glad I wasn't there right now. Right now today, I'm glad I wasn't there. If patience was just waiting until the suffering ended, if it was just about waiting till the suffering was over, we could act any way that we wanted as long as we didn't give up. Jesus is saying there's a better version of life in waiting. Point number 2, where is patience? Where is it? We know where it's not. We know it's not just heavily loaded on someday down the road when we get to heaven, or someday down the road when Jesus takes up arms against all of our political enemies. We have $1 million in the bank and all the bad guys are defeated, and then we're just waiting for that. We're just not doing anything till then. Jesus says, I'm glad I was not there so that you may believe. Side note, patience probably needs to be premeditated. If we're thinking, the Plato's cave of like, how do we shape our thinking? Do we channel our thinking toward more victory, or do we channel our thinking towards more wisdom? I would say this. You've got to channel your mind, channel your thinking, which is, listen, I've worked blue-collar jobs and I've worked white-collar jobs. And let me tell you this, physically, it is more demanding to go dig ditches than it is to think. But it is more exhausting to reshape the way that you think than it is to dig ditches. There is a rest that you get when you've dug ditches and you've worked hard and you've been out in the sun and you've worked hard, you come home and you rest. When you are trying to shape the way that you think, it never ends. You lay down, it's there. You wake up, it's there. You try to go to sleep, you can't sleep because in your mind there's just this torment as you're trying to think differently. Patience has to be premeditated because once you're in it, it's already too late. If you're already in your panic, heaving, what's God going to do? Where are the bad guys? Us versus them. Too late. Right now is the time to start rethinking how we feel about patience. Patience, if it's a battle about the way that we think, if patience is a battle for how you think, it is only located in one place. You can only go to one place to find patience in the cultural sense of fruits of the Spirit. There's one place to find patience, and that is between what we want and what is. The space between what we would like to see versus what we are seeing. Let me say it this way. Patience is located between the problem and the solution. It's not patience if there's no problem. You're not patient if there's no problem. So it starts when there's a problem. But if the solution is already there, what patience does that take? It's already been resolved. Patience exists and begins to become real in our lives between the time when we discover a problem and before it gets solved. This Mary, this is verse 2 again, this Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured the perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, the Lord, the one you love, is sick. We don't process suffering very well. The church doesn't process suffering. Our world doesn't process suffering very well. When we experience suffering, it is so easy to think that the only course of action is immediately go into gear until the source of suffering has been alleviated. We don't think of suffering as anything positive. We don't think of the benefits that come in the seasons when we're suffering. We think suffering is bad. It's like a daddy issue. We think suffering is bad and we must have done something wrong and we got to figure out how to do it right so the suffering goes away. Listen, you can't experience patience if you think all suffering is bad. If you think every time you go into a season of discomfort or suffering that instantly it's bad, you can't have patience, because patience is in that moment where suffering also exists. In fact, a lot of times, it's the reason people come to Jesus in the first place. They're experiencing suffering and they think maybe if I go to Jesus, he can make it better. We have a very unhealthy relationship with suffering. I think I could be more specific than that. I think you and I have a very unhealthy perspective on suffering. We see suffering as the problem instead of seeing suffering as the opportunity. I think that might be, see if this makes sense in your own life. If you were to really take inventory and be honest with yourself, I think that's the reason we get so obsessed with religious rules, is we think that if we follow the religious rules, Jesus takes the suffering away and our life gets better. That's why people get so mad at God when they're like, I'm out here trying to be a good person. I was following the rules. I wanted the suffering to go away, because we don't see suffering as an opportunity. We see suffering as a problem that needs to be dealt with. And we don't understand the gap that exists between the problem and the solution. Either he can't fix this. How many times you heard this say? Either he can't fix this, so he's not who he said he was. God isn't who he said he was because he can't fix it, or he won't fix it, so he's not good. He's either not as powerful as he says, or he's not as good as he says. Why? Because we assume we see the whole picture. We assume that the way that we see it is the entire picture, and that God is now in our own false dilemma. He either has to do this or this, and he's doing neither, therefore. Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead would be the second miracle. That's the second miracle. Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead in Jesus' mind, that's the easy part. I think I can speak on behalf of the Lord in this particular instance when I said that Jesus was not stressed out or anxious about Lazarus dying because he understood what his plan was. It would also be very easy to understand that if your brother was dying, you wouldn't see all that. If someone that you loved was dying, you wouldn't see the perspective accurately. It would just feel like a mountain in front of you that Jesus won't acknowledge. Now, Jesus loved Martha. I explained this. Jesus loved Martha and her sister Lazarus. So, this does not make sense at a glance. At a glance, in your life, this won't make sense either. In my life, this won't make sense. It says, because Jesus loves you, so he waits. See, patience is found between the problem and the solution. And so because Jesus loves you, he waits so that the work that he does between the problem and the solution has a chance. Why? Because he loves you, and he won't listen to your advice when you say, get this over with. Where did the first miracle start? So the second miracle is that Lazarus was going to be raised from the dead. But where was the first miracle? Where did it start? Where did the first miracle in the lives of Mary, Martha, Lazarus, and the disciples, where did that first miracle begin? I would say the first miracle began at the realization that Lazarus was sick. Why? Because that's where the problem started. Sometimes, have you ever got a bill that you weren't expecting, and you open the envelope and there's like a number and you're like, what? It's the introduction of a problem. See, the bill isn't paid yet, so the solution isn't there, but the problem is. It's that realization that the miracle of what happens between problem and solution, it began at Lazarus being sick. That space, please try to grasp this. And I know we're covering a lot of territory. I feel like we're just doing a flyover, but try to think of this. The space between the problem and the solution, that's where the miraculous exists. I think sometimes we get so logical and what's feasible. We don't like to think about things like miracles because we've advanced beyond that. That's where miracles happen. Jesus does miraculous things between the problem and the solution. That's the envelope where the miraculous exists. And yet we get in such a hurry because we think of patience as being the solution. Patience is that we wait until the solution gets there. It says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Why? He's extending the time between the problem and the solution. He's giving it the window a bigger opportunity between what they wanted and what was. I know the pastor in me, as weird a pastor as I know that I can be sometimes, I know this, that my heart beats for this right here, is that when people start to ask questions about Jesus, I know that there is a space between the problem and the solution. That's where people start to look to Jesus. That's where people start to ask questions, because if the problem hadn't come up, they don't stop what they're doing. And if the solution is already resolved, they go back to what they were doing before. Some of the most powerful moments in our life happen when we discover a problem, but we don't yet know the solution. And I know that there will be people listening to this that find themselves right here, right now, in this moment between the problem and the solution. And if we don't understand suffering, all that we're focused on is getting the problem resolved. And we don't appreciate the work that God does in that space. What does it look like? Where it isn't, heavy loaded on the end towards the solution. Where it is, between the problem and the solution, what does it look like? We've established where it should be hiding, all you elk hunters. We've figured out where it lives. Now we got to figure out what it looks like. This is in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12 says this. The Bible says some hard things. And if you're just reading through it and you got your little coffee and Instagram in the morning at 8 o'clock and you're just kind of easing through your morning, you could read over this and not understand the depth of what's being said. But sometimes when you're in the problem, between the problem and the solution, and you read this, it means something a little deeper. See if I'm right. Verse 12, dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. Can I say it again? Let me read it without breaking it up with dramatics. Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening. Doesn't that tell you that our suffering, we think when suffering happens, we're like, what is this craziness, Lord? Where's this bill come from? Where's this health issue, Lord? This has just come upon us, this struggle, this season. Where does this come from? It's a surprise. And Peter's going, don't let it be a surprise when a fiery, pretty strong verbiage, when the fiery ordeal. But rejoice. Okay. But rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed. This is impossible. There is no way you're going to do this. There is no way you're going to be able to do this. Let me read this to you again. Anybody that reads this is like, yeah, I do that. You are a liar. You don't do this. We don't do this. We're not good at this. This is not in our nature. This is 2021. We live in a free country. We're rich. We don't have problems. We think that suffering is the problem. Let me read this again. This is impossible. Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed when his glory is revealed. That's what it looks like. That's what patience looks like, is that in the fire between the problem and the solution, that God is at work in your life. And it's not saying rejoice because you're in the fire. That's not what it's saying. It's saying rejoice because when you're in the fire, things are happening. God is shaping you in ways that the fire had to be there. The fire between the problem and the solution was necessary. The space between the problem and the solution. The table is set. The problem is the opportunity. The problem is where the miracle begins. The space between the problem and the solution, that's where miracles happen. That's where people learn how to bend instead of break. Because if God, listen, pause. If God were to try to do the work in your life before the problem, you break. And if he tries to do the work in your life after you've already cooled off and the solution has come and gone, you break. But in the moment where you're so enraptured in the flame of life, and you're like, I can't figure this out. God is at work and you're learning how to bend. And Peter says you can rejoice in that. You can rejoice in the fact that God is an involved God. Who was the masterpiece? Who was the mastermind behind what was going on in the story of Lazarus? Jesus was doing all of it. Nobody else in the story understood what was going on. They didn't figure it out. They didn't solve it. They didn't put the puzzle pieces together. You're not being asked to put the puzzle pieces of your life together. Why? Because the solution isn't the main thing. Figuring it out isn't the main thing. The disciples didn't figure it out. Martha didn't figure it out. Mary didn't figure it out. Lazarus sure didn't figure it out. Jesus was at work in the lives of all of them, and he was using the space between problem and solution to shape them into something different. James says this: consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to consider it pure joy when I'm in the middle of life's problems and I can't solve them and there's things going on and I can't fix them. And how am I supposed to consider that joy? When you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Can I say that a different way? That the testing of your faith produces bendiness and flexibility, and you become stronger, like a sword being forged in a fire, that you're becoming something completely new and different. And it can only happen in the fire between the problem and the solution, because if it happened before that, it wouldn't work. If it happened after that, it wouldn't work. Patience is the being in the middle of the fire and the okayness and this sense of purpose that God is at work in my life. Even though I can't understand it, even though I'm in the middle of a problem that I can't fathom, God's going, that's patience. That's where patience is located, and that's what it looks like, is that you are moving from self-reliance. Let me just tell you, sidebar, if you're an independent person, you will struggle with patience. And if you live in Powell Butte, you're probably an independent person. Independence was such a big part of my personality. It was such a big part of my identity. I liked being independent. I still like being independent. But if I'm independent, it means I struggle with being fully dependent on God. It means that when I find myself in a fire between the problem and the solution, I want to fix it. I want to get to work. What rules get me out of this? What do I do to solve this suffering? And Jesus says, you just sit in it. You just accept it. You can't produce patience without the same confidence that says God is at work in my life. That's what Plato's cave, I think that's what he's trying to describe, is that you have to see something even bigger, something even more real, something even more important before you can go back into the situation that you're in and see it accurately. It's the deepest labor. It is the deepest labor to reshape your thinking, to say that sometimes suffering is producing something in my life that is good. Sometimes in my moments of longing and suffering, I catch myself, I gotta fix this, and I'm manic, and I gotta work this. And I don't realize that suffering has a place in my life, and that God does some good work in my life. And in times between the problem and the solution, no more panting, no more heaving. He's saying, just suffer in it. Just suffer in it. Can you imagine? I said bendiness, and I don't mean the town. I just wonder if you could imagine going like to a Starbucks, and I'm going to specifically pick on Bend because I don't like Bend. Going into a Starbucks in Bend and telling people, you just got to suffer it. You just have to sit in it and let it do its work. See, we've decided that suffering is the ultimate evil and that power is the ultimate good, and that if you have enough power, you can avoid suffering, but logically we know that's not true. Wisdom outweighs power. And wisdom says there is a God at work in my life that will allow things to get so bad that I give up on thinking I can fix it, so that I can be broken, so that I can be reshaped, so that I can be reformed. And that only takes place between the original discovery of the problem and before God resolves it and makes it okay, he makes me something different in the process. And patience lets me sit in it while I'm figuring it all out. And while God is showing me and developing in me something I didn't know was there, I don't panic. I'm not rushing around. I'm suffering in it and I'm sitting in it. If I could encourage you with anything, wherever you're watching from, whether you're a part of the Powell Butte campus or whether you're watching online, let me encourage you with this. Find the areas where anxiety is the most prevalent in your life and suffer in it. Learn to take a deep breath, knowing that between the problem and the solution, God is forming you into something completely different. Let's pray. Lord, I know that we have an addiction with conquering, with winning, with solving it, with fixing it, with having so much power and resources that we can solve our own suffering. God, we've got an addiction with getting things resolved, and what we do is we miss out on the space of miraculous. We miss out on the space where you get to shape us into something different. When we have the agency to pull ourselves out of the fire, we do. We pull ourselves out of suffering. We pull ourselves out of discomfort. But God, it's in those moments of suffering between the problem and the solution where you form us and you shape us into something different. So the challenge I have, God, just in our hearts, show us the areas where we're more concerned with getting out of the fire than becoming something different. God, let us see the areas where we view suffering as having done something wrong, and then just this addiction to religion and rules, and that we're so focused on getting it resolved that we miss out on the process of what you're doing in our lives. Help us to see it. Help us to understand it. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
I've carried a burden too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. Run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 oh. done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, so I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Been in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms is running to life from death. I feel this rush deep in my chest, your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know that I need you. Run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, and my soul found a friend, so I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh,
All right, you guys, that brings us to the end of today's service. I'm kind of sad. We should do this again.
We should do
This time next week?
Exactly 1 week from now. We should do it again.
Let's do it. Okay, you guys, join us next week, same time, same place. This is your huge reminder to share the service. So the service is always available on Facebook after the fact. It's available on YouTube after the fact. So lots of different ways you can share the service, share what we're doing with people, and invite someone to join you online next week. It's super easy to just copy and paste the link and send it to them. I think Jacob said it last week, but just sharing what we're doing, sharing what you are a part of just helps everything to grow. So we appreciate you guys sharing. We would love for you to bring friends, family, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, word of mouth. Spread it with people who you think will enjoy it.
Yeah, spread it with someone who may need to learn about impractical patience this week, because I think I do.
Exactly.
Okay, you guys, we love you so much. Thank you again for being here. Closing remarks?
Love yourself, love those around you, and love your neighbors.
Love your neighbors. Okay, guys, we'll see you next week.
So long.
Bye.